In this episode of The Landscape, we'll be taking a look at Flux. Flux is a graduated CNCF project that's been written in Go, which enables GitOps for Kubernetes, automating the deployment, configuration, and management of applications and infrastructure. It continuously monitors a Git repository for changes, automatically applying updates to the Kubernetes cluster based on the repository state. The project has 6,300 stars on GitHub, 6,700 Slack users, and has been forked a total of 600 times. But the most impressive stat by far would be the fact that Flux has over 8 billion Docker pulls. Flux supports Helm, Customize, and other Kubernetes deployment tools, ensuring that the desired state defined in Git is always reflected in the cluster. It simplifies the management of complex environments, enhancing security by using Git as a source of truth, and integrates with CI/CD pipelines for streamlined operations. Some well-known users include Cisco, Grafana Labs, JB Hunt, Maersk, Orange, RingCentral, UiPath, and Virginia Tech. In this episode of The Landscape, my co-host Sylvain Kalash and I speak to Stefan Prodan, who is a principal consultant at Control Plane and a Flux maintainer. Let's take a look at the episode. Stefan, welcome to The Landscape. Pleasure to have you with us. First and foremost, what problem or problems does Flux solve?
Hey, thank you for having me. Flux is a GitOps tool, and it tries to solve for Kubernetes users writing continuous delivery at scale with a focus on supply chain security. And Flux is not a single thing, it's a collection of tools. So it brings all your favorite tools like kubectl, Helm, Customize in the form of Kubernetes controllers. So you could imagine these tools are running inside the cluster. You don't need to connect to the cluster at all. All you need to do is, push configuration to some external storage. That can be a Git repository, that can be an S3 bucket, that can be a OCI artifact in a container registry. And Flux from there will do all the things that you would normally do in a classical CI/CD setup where you run a kubectl apply or a Helm upgrade or, customize build and kubectl apply and so on, right? Flux does all these things on its own automatically once you change the desired state of your clusters, applications, infra, and so on.
And you personally, how did you get involved in this project? You just explained it very well, it's a collection of different tools. What's your personal story in terms of how you got involved there?
Many years ago, I think 7. 7 years ago, I got hired by WeWorks to join their journey onto GitOps. GitOps back then was a thing that we used to, call it in the office. GitOps was not known by anyone. So yeah, I joined early on the Flux project. It was just getting started. Since then, I have became a Flux core maintainer. I designed the Flux version 2 along with other maintainers in the Flux project. Flux has been through a major iteration. Usually, projects don't start from scratch. It's a very difficult decision to make and a very, the hard step to make. But we did that roughly 4 years ago. We designed Flux version 2 from scratch, built on Kubernetes control runtime and other, CRDs and everything. Flux started way before Kubernetes had CRDs and all of that. So, here we are with Flux version 2, and I'm still continuing this journey at a different company, Control Plane.
Flux has been around for a while, and as you mentioned in your intro, it can do a lot of things. But if you had to pick one feature, which one is your favorite feature?
I would say, so Flux has a command line tool, a CLI, which is called Flux. And it has a command called bootstrap. So you say Flux bootstrap GitHub, for example, and this single command sets up Flux on your cluster, connects the cluster with your Git repo, sets up deploys key for you, authentication, everything. And it's a single command, kicks off the whole GitOps process. And once after you run this command, you never have to connect to the cluster again. Flux can upgrade itself automatically. So yeah, I think this is a powerful feature of Flux, which improves the user experience of getting started. As you said, it's a complicated tool, but we have this one command that sets up everything for you.
Very good. One command to rule them all. In terms of the best, end user or success stories that you could share with us, which ones would they be?
So I'll give you some example recent ones. In KubeCon Paris, I had a talk with a person from Cisco, and the talk was about how Cisco IoT platform manages 200 million IoT devices through Kubernetes, and it uses Flux for everything, especially the Helm controller part of Flux, where they orchestrate and they manage all these huge IoT platforms for Flux. So it's on YouTube. You can go and watch that talk. It's quite interesting to see how a huge company uses Flux truly at scale. Other success stories for me personally was, I think, 2 years ago or 1.5 years when GitLab made the choice between their own tooling that they built for continuous delivery, Argo and Flux, and they chose to replace their continuous delivery tooling for their users with Flux. And there is an issue in GitLab does all these decisions publicly. There is a issue there. It took them a couple of months to analyze Argo versus Flux versus their own internal tooling, and you can see there their conclusions why they went with Flux. So that's, for me, it's a great user story. And another one, for example, it's Microsoft that choose Flux for their GitOps implementation in Azure Arc, and AWS has the same for EKS Anywhere, where they ship EKS Anywhere with Flux embedded. So these are more like platforms which integrate Flux, and all those the users of these platforms, take advantage of Flux capabilities.
Wow, that's quite impressive. Thank you for sharing these stories. So Flux is obviously something that is very central to your infrastructure. And when people are picking a tool, they want to ensure that it's compatible with the rest of their stack. Could you share a few of the other CNCF landscape tools that Flux is integrating with? I think maybe there are too many to mention them all, but maybe some that are new or some that are not as known as other ones.
Yeah, so integrations are both sides, right? One is Flux integrating with some tools, and of course, like most Kubernetes tools out there, it integrates very well with Prometheus. We want people to be able to use Prometheus Grafana, the usual monitoring stack, which is usually based on Prometheus, to observe what's going on with Flux, with their continuous delivery. So we worked a lot on integrating Flux with Prometheus. We ship Flux with Grafana dashboards, which are very detailed and give you an overview of what's happening. Flux also integrates with many tools through, for example, Flagr is a sub-project of Flux, and Flagr does the progressive delivery part of the story. Progressive delivery means you shift traffic when you do a new release, so you don't, impact all your users. And Flagr, for example, integrates with Istio, with Linkerd, with Kuma, with Ingress and Nginx, and all the service meshes and ingress controllers out there. So I think Flagr, as a sub-project of Flux, is one tool that integrates with half of the landscape. That's what Flagr does. But there's also the other side of the story, right, where other tools build on top of Flux and integrate Flux in their own workflows. And one Linux Foundation project which is quite important is the Silva project. I don't know if you heard about it. It's where all the telecom companies came together under the Linux Foundation and said, okay, we need a platform, a common platform for all telcos to adopt 5G and run Kubernetes at the edge, manage network functions and so on. And the Silva project is built on top of Flux. So when you install Silva, it installs Flux, and then all the network function deployments, the edge deployments are done through Flux and Flux APIs and controllers. Another interesting project which is out there is Tofu, right, under the Linux Foundation. And there is a Tofu controller, which is an extension of Flux that takes Flux beyond just Kubernetes. So normally with Flux, the CNCF Flux looks at a Git repo and expects there to have, Kubernetes manifests, like a Helm release, Kubernetes deployment, things like that. But with Tofu controller, you can place in your Git repos or the desired state, you can place their Terraform scripts. And Tofu controller will reconcile those and, will create, external infrastructure, which is maybe part of your application deployment. So that's another strong example of how Flux is extended, can be extended, and are built through these controllers. We have our own Kubernetes controller SDK that other projects can use and extend Flux like that. Another example is KCL, the KCL language. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. They have recently developed a KCL controller that works same. There is another project, Kubevela, that also integrates Flux for GitOps. Yeah, and the list goes on. I'm going to stop here.
I guess the question is, does the list ever end? So if it does, when is Flux not the answer? What would you say, actually, you know what, this is not something that Flux can help out with?
Yeah, so we given the fact that Flux is a CLI, has like hundreds of commands, and it can be, used with shell scripts and so on. I've seen people trying to use it as an imperative deployment tool. When they run Flux create Helm release from a CI pipeline, and then Flux reconcile that Helm release, then they wait for that in the pipeline through shell scripts and so on. While this is possible, and we build the CLI in that way to be for people to be able to write these scripts, it's more about, we did that more for testing Flux and not for actually running Flux like that in production. You shouldn't be connecting to the API all the time when you want to do something. You should let Flux do its own thing. So yeah, I would say it's okay to run the Flux CLI, but stop at the staging cluster, and in production, don't run it that way.
Okay, all right. So you can do it, but proceed with caution. So now, I guess the burning question that we may have, is around Argo. Could you compare the two tools, maybe how, one may be more appropriate than the other in certain condition?
Yeah, we had many discussions during the years of Flux development with the Argo team. We know each other very well. It's there are many differences, subtle differences between the projects. For example, Argo has the single, let's say, I would call it, generic API is the Argo apps. While in Flux, we don't want to tell people what an app is and how it should be defined. Flux is more low-level APIs. We give you the reflection of tools. For example, if you want to define your sources, you will create a Git repository object, right? There is no such thing in Argo. Don't define Git as its own entity. It's part of the app. And in Flux, then your app can be composed through, some plain YAMLs, and that's a Flux customization to apply that. Then maybe you also need some hand releases, and all those charts are defined in Flux through chart object and a hand release object and so on. So the difference is in Flux, we went with an API which is, I would say, more close to Kubernetes in spirit. Like things are not one step that you deploy all of a sudden. You have to compose them. You have to define dependencies between them. While Argo gives you this, monolithic API. It's an app, and you put all things in there. Which is, it's way easier to get started maybe by just creating this app thing, looking at the Argo UI, clicking buttons, and so on. Flux is guided towards more, being able to be more flexible on how you define your apps and being able to scale very easily without needing to connect to Flux or, clicking buttons. So from a get started perspective, I think Argo is easier. But when you need to scale, you should be looking into Flux.
In terms of other capabilities, a very hot topic right now with any CNCF project is, to what extent is it AI friendly, or is AI being incorporated? When it comes to Flux, where is the project at right now when it comes to AI?
Well, there is a large company, I guess you heard about it, called Zscaler, which is a long-term Flux user, and they told us they are very successful into employing Flux for AI delivery. So they are using Flux, and the things that, coming back to the Argo piece, right? Argo, it's all about Git when you think of the desired state of your cluster. With Flux, we have this OCI artifact concept where there is no Git. You basically define your desired state through OCI artifacts, and you push Flux. The CLI has a push command like Docker, where everything is bundled under in a container registry. And Zscaler are using these tools. Models are bundled now. This is the direction, at least, to have models published to a container registry as an OCI artifact. And they use this together with Flux push, and they are streamlining their delivery pipelines for AI workloads using Flux that way. So that's one of the examples from users. There are many companies which employ AI and are offering AI services to their end users, and they are using Flux to orchestrate all of that. Flux itself does not have an AI controller, and I don't think we want to go there anytime soon. But yeah, that's the AI story for now.
Very good. Now, you've been with the project for quite some time. Are there any shout outs that you would like to give to key people, whether they're other maintainers or contributors?
Oh yeah, I want to give a shout out to Mateus. He recently became a Flux maintainer, multiple Flux controllers. And yeah, thank you, Mateus, for all your contributions this year. And he's helping us now with the next Flux release, which is, it takes a long time. It's a long process. It implies a lot of, attention to it. And Mateus is there for us, help us. So I'm very happy we are expanding our Flux maintainer team with new people that are happy to help.
Now, I do have to ask, in terms of, secret sauce or fun facts about the project, the term Flux, I hear that and I think about Flux capacitor from Back to the Future. I highly doubt I'm the first or the last. Does that have any influence on the name?
The funny story is that in the pub where we worked, people got together. There is a Flux capacitor box on the wall there. I also have a picture in it. I think it's on Twitter from a couple of years ago. So yeah, I think it relates to that in a way. of course, the name Flux and tries to imply the fact that like continuous delivery. It's a thing that continuously moves. But yeah, it comes from Flux capacity.
Great. Yeah, that's fun. If you can share the link, so we can post it in the description. I'd like to see that picture. So there is a lot of things going on with Flux as product has been around for a while. Is there any exciting upcoming roadmap item that you'd like to share?
Yes, we maintain our roadmap for 1 year. We try to do it at the beginning of every year, and so people know what to expect. But we also have this process in place, which is based on RFCs, like RFCs in the Linux space, Rust, in other languages, where you basically, if you have a crazy idea, you have to create, and you want it in Flux, you have to go through this RFC process. And yeah, this year I created an RFC for having a Gitless Flux bootstrap in the future, where instead of pointing the Flux CLI to a Git repo, you would point the Flux CLI to your container registry, and you'll no longer need Git at all. And even if Flux works great right now with OCI artifacts, container registries, as I said, we don't have that, one command, one click experience like we have for Git. Yeah, I'm gathering feedback on that idea. Lots of users got excited when I mentioned it, and I'm looking forward for us, the Flux maintainers and the community, to finalize that RFC at some point this year, and maybe early next year to launch the new command, which will completely decouple Flux from Git if you want to run it that way.
And you mentioned the community. If people want to get involved in Flux, as a contributor, what kind of contributors are you looking for? What's the best way to start participating?
So Flux, there is a Flux CD organization on GitHub, and Flux is made out of many controllers, components, and so on. So it's not just one repo where you can go, but in the Flux 2 repo, which is the repository where the Flux distribution is and the CLI code, usually people open their issues, even if they are not about the CLI, but the whole project itself. We also have the GitHub discussions enabled for the whole project. So that's where you would go to find issues that need help, or to join others on GitHub discussions, where we basically decide, do you want to have this new feature, or if we go through the RFC way, which maintainer will be a sponsor of the RFC, and so on. Right now we have an RFC merge, which is about which comes from Microsoft. It's about being able to use OEDC to connect to external sources. For example, an Azure Git repository in Azure DevOps. So you don't have to use SSH anymore. You don't have to rotate keys. Everything should be based on OEDC. And we have an issue. It's pinned on the Flux 2 repo, where we explain there all the things how people can help us. For example, if you know Google Cloud, then you are aware of how OEDC works there, you could help us and contribute the OEDC authentication in Flux for Google repositories. Or if you know very well GitHub and GitHub apps, please come and help us implement OEDC authentication in Flux through GitHub app, so people don't have to use SSH anymore and personal access tokens. We have the same for GitLab and so on. So we can't implement all of that on our own. We need help, and the best help comes from users which are very custom with that particular platform. We as maintainers, we use GitHub, right? That's and Kubernetes kind and stuff like that. We don't use on a daily basis all the cloud vendors, all the Git providers out there. So this is where the community can really help us when it comes to specific tasks around some kind of integration that we are not that familiar with.
It's very clear that you spend a lot of time on Flux. When you're not working on Flux, what do you like to do in your free time?
I have a Shiba Inu, a dog, and me and my wife, we like very much take the dog and travel around Europe with the car. Get the dog in the car and travel around. So yeah, traveling is one of my passions, let's say. I think that's the main thing I love to do outside working on the Flux or hanging out with the Flux community.
And the thing is, you have a very large and very healthy community, and I think it's a really beautiful thing. It's not something that falls from the sky. It's lots and lots of work. It's lots of conversations and connections. That being said, thank you very much for joining us today on The Landscape. I appreciate all of your efforts. Look forward to see what happens next with Flux. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.